The clown pulled out a gun
and shot her twice in the face.
Some very excited young people came.
cold cases. We have a big puzzle, and some of the pieces are already filled in.
One epidemic on the coast.
Drew in a lot of celebrities. It's very close to Mar-a-Lago with folks like Bruce Springsteen.
Until May of 1990.
Saturday, May 26, 1990 is Memorial.
For his son.
That morning, I do remember we were eating breakfast. Nice, calm Saturday, I believe.
It's Marlene in the face.
Joey hears the gunshot. He runs to the door, and he
They've shot Joey's mother. My wife said, "Stay there, I'll call 911.
Marlene is
Parents, she was actually a kind kid who really loved spending time with her sisters on her grandfather's farm.
And to this day, her parents still have a room dedicated to clowns.
named after Marlene's husband, John Aarons. She would then have another child.
Actually, he's a bit younger, so marries her. She's got the 2 little kids. They moved to South Florida.
They're starting to pull in some real money.
Marlene is running the rental property business.
To Mike and Marlene's relationship, but for Marlene Warren, who had already lost a husband, she was about to lose. Division is called the Aero Club.
Michael and Marlene are 2 different people. I mean, Marlene.
You knew almost everybody, and you would go to the country club or to the grocery store. Michael.
Michael loved a few things. He liked cars, he loved horse racing, and he also
Things seemed to happen to this one guy, and he was quite rough around the edges compared to the
mileage on the car. It really highlights the dark and seedy side of Michael Warren.
Michael
1988, tragedy would strike for the second time.
Her oldest son, John Aarons Jr.
in troubles in Michael and Marlene's relationship, it seemed.
The death of Marlene's son, as
Connection.
Eventually, Sheila ends up divorcing her husband, and was under the microscope with investigators because they were trying to figure out who had the motive and the opportunity.
someone is delivering balloons and flowers to her. Think about what's going through her mind when all that changes.
He was distraught over the fact that all he could identify was that the clown
bit because police were looking for someone that fit the description of a man.
A woman is literally cooking
LeBaron is found in the parking lot of a Winn-Dixie, and inside that LeBaron, they found
also known as Sheila Sheltra. That's her maiden name, and she has a bit of a criminal history dating
Crystal Gale type. So she liked boys liked her.
Sheila had a restaurant.
Associating herself with some bad people and specifically gets out of prison in Georgia, they decide to come back to Florida, and that would be when Sheila
somebody who had bought a car in a motel, and while she was in there,
at Pine Ridge, and the folks there assumed that she was married, but not to Richard.
That they thought Sheila and Mike were having an affair. They went for long lunches. They were very affectionate.
you know, are you in love with him? Do you love him? And she said she did. And then Mom turned to Michael.
Never have to work again if he gets rid of that woman.
So it wasn't a surprise.
investigators started to look at the couple, at Michael and Sheila, the more the evidence started to pile up, not against
When Marlene Warren was murdered at her front
white Chrysler LeBaron from Payless Cars, another lot nearby, and they called that number to figure out how to go about dropping off their rental.
Miles away from where the murder occurred. And inside, they found a number of hairs.
Please, what this is in reference to. And he said, well, you're probably going to read about it all over the papers tomorrow.
She said, I need to buy a costume. And I said, can you come back tomorrow? We're closed. And now I
picked Sheila out of a photo lineup, saying that she had been the woman that came a few days then extra white face paint so she couldn't be identified.
So the connections get crazier and
That employee also able to identify Sheila. Plus, Sheila had
the people that worked at the auto parts store. After the murder, people remembered that.
From an outsider's perspective,
believes Michael and Sheila have nothing to do with his mother's murder.
Michael, were you on? suspicious, and she is even mentioned as a prime suspect in all of this. Would that shock you that she would be a prime suspect?
The size of the person.
Joey's description was of a man, and now
Represented Joey Aaron's.
her youngest son got into some trouble, ended up being charged with a crime, and
and he was there, so he got charged with it.
there's an interaction that takes place
He could inherit if he murdered his wife. And my first emotional reaction was, if you wore a clown suit, it wasn't intended to advise him to wear a clown suit or anything like that.
For murder.
As all of this is coming out, it would also come to light that Marlene
but there was no arrest. They needed more evidence.
So Michael and Sheila do not acknowledge.
There tunes into them and notices when they come in, Sheila seems uneasy.
Mike goes on a radio show.
Have you severed all your business ties?
The both of them in the past, yes.
When was the last time you spoke to Sheila?
Probably about.
But they had no evidence. So they started surveilling his place of business, his rental car.
Michael with odometer tampering, like 20 racketeering charges.
Sentenced to 9 years in prison.
For a few years, the investigation really seems to be going
My father told me that you'll find all of the answers if you pull up
murder.
So the police sent divers down and they looked and looked and looked.
And sure enough,
They are livid because they are convinced that Sheila is the killer clown.
As far as the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office has disclosed, they got a grant.
We kind of formed a little task force with members of the state attorney's office and the
Sheila has even changed her name to Debbie, and none of the folks in that new town
More than 20.
With everyone, neighbors even talk about how much they seem to be in love.
Very much in love, very close.
They've opened up a fast food restaurant across the border.
Toys at a boat at their house on a lake, and they entertained frequently. They
seem to show another side.
I told him to put down the rocks and
rock.
he was a bully.
Somebody thinks he's going to get what he wants.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
Michael.
Murder in Florida. The details of that conversation aren't included in depth in the police report.
are driving in their Cadillac SUV, coming back from Vermont, coming home to Abington, when they get pulled over.
penalty in this case is life in prison.
We don't know if there'll be anybody else charged in this. That remains to be.
A mugshot. You look at the mugshot after she's taken into custody. She's
against Sheila Keene Warren at a bond hearing where the lead investigator of the reopened investigation took the stand.
Sheila Keene Warren has been writing a lot of letters. We've taken a look at them, and when you read the words that she has written,
and you don't have the murder weapon.
The public wants justice. Is
It's almost like it took more than a decade for their plan to play out, but eventually.
Inconsistent statements that the prosecution has to overcome in this case.
With top-notch professionals,
All in a shock and grieving process, and just really praying for the whole